but I don't think we need to fear the way we do. And what difference will it make if we do? I'm a believer in that our thoughts and our beliefs help create this reality to some degree or another. Whatever, some people think it does almost 100%. I'm kind of lean towards that direction, but I still tend to question everything. And I believe a positive outlook and a positive attitude and looking for the good in everything is important in moving forward for humanity. I'm reminded of a near-death experience that I read about or listened to on a video, I don't remember which, where the gal was talking about how when she was on the other side, having her NDE experience, her thoughts attached to other people, her negative thoughts. She saw them attached to other people and influenced them. All right, my friends, here we are today. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and God and the future of humanity, and should we be afraid of it? So, a lot of stuff going on these days, and a lot of people fear AI and the impact that it could have on us. I want to talk a little bit about that. Let me know in the comments what you think. And my perspective is always going to be to not to fear, okay? Because when you come from a fear perspective, that always skews your view of the situation. And there's a lot of fear out there, especially with all the political changes and things that have gone on. And there's people on both sides of the equation that are fearing on both sides. And in my opinion, in my perspective, that's never a good thing. So if you're into the scriptures at all, the scriptures repeatedly say not to fear. And there's a reason for that. And it's because there's a bigger picture. There's always a bigger picture than what we see right before us in this physical world. Okay? And coming at it from a metaphysical standpoint, we're more than just the body, as you've heard me say, and I'm sure you've heard many other people say that too. Okay? There's a divine spirit within us, if you will, or a divine nature. Okay, so we're here in this physical world of duality to experience the difference between the divine nature and the animal nature. And that's the eternal battle, really. Well, maybe not eternal, but it's in the physical world. It's the eternal battle. So we're here trying to learn how to bring the carnal or animal nature, as the scriptures call it, into subjection to the divine nature. Now, if you're a student of the scriptures, that the divine nature is symbolized by Christ, and the animal nature is symbolized by the devil or Satan, if you will. Okay? Now, people take that too literally, in my opinion, and they miss the mark or they miss the message of that. The battle is within you. And this is why the scriptures also teach that the kingdom of God is within you and that the Father and Christ are within you. Okay? And I believe that's Luke 17:21 through 22 and John 14:20, among several other scriptures that say similar things to that. And I think that's largely missed by the Christian world. So if you're not into the scriptures, don't worry about it because it's all metaphor, or at least the true message is metaphor. And I'm not arguing whether it's history or not real history. I tend to think that there is some real history to it, but not necessarily everything. I think the real message is in the metaphor. Well, what the heck does this have to do with AI, right? Well, it goes back to the fear. And the fear factor is that AI is coming, whether you like it or not. Okay? So what are you going to do about it? Can we stop it? No, I don't think so. It's going to come no matter what. So we need to accept it and try to be on the right side of it. Folks, it's just a tool. It's just a tool, and it could be used for good or evil like any tool. Same thing with guns and knives and all sorts of stuff. Or an automobile, you know. Some guy a while back used an automobile to run a bunch of people down to make a political statement. Okay? That's the evil use of the automobile. So should we get rid of automobiles? Of course not. Can we get rid of automobiles? People say, oh, well, that's different. Well, it's not really that different, my friends. And AI is the same way. AI is a fantastic tool. I've been using it. I use Grok mostly now I've used ChatGPT And here's an example of why AI is a tool. Okay. And AI, when you ask it a question, it goes out there and scrubs all the net and the database and everything and returns to you what it came up with. It just does it really fast. Okay. Now, there's a lot of propaganda on the net, and I think people from both sides will agree to that. Of course, they won't agree on what's propaganda and what's not, but AI will bring that propaganda back to you and as almost as if it's fact. Now, here's the key, in my opinion, is you can educate AI. So I've asked it questions that I pretty much knew the answer to and got some of that propaganda back that was wrong and told it, hey, this is wrong. This is not true. Dig deeper. And it went and it did dig deeper. Now, this is, I use the AI from X, which is Grok, like I said before. Now, and I've used GPT. Now, Chat GPT has come back and said that information doesn't exist or that I'm wrong. But Grok has gone out and actually found the websites and the evidence and so on and said, you're right. I need to readjust my perspective on that. That's what you call educating it. Now, you can do that with Chat GPT to a certain degree too, but you have to work harder at it and you have to know the websites and say here's a website that says that, but it'll still come back with a biased perspective. And where does that bias come from? It comes from those who are programming it. So AI is only as good as its programmers. And that brings us to the question of, is AI conscious or can it become conscious? And really that depends on your definition of consciousness. And so I think I would at first, I used to say, no, there's no way AI can become conscious because, like us, because we are a divine entity or a divine energy or a divine spirit, if you will. And AI can't do that. But I've changed my opinion on that because actually, if our divine spirit can come and inhabit this body, why couldn't it inhabit an AI body? That might be too much for some of you to think about, but it's a possibility in the future. But even so, in a way, it's conscious even, if it can think and reason by gathering data, and sifting through that data, that's a form of consciousness. Maybe not the same type of consciousness that we have, because we're an entity, we're a energetic entity inhabiting this body or this avatar, if you will. Okay. But isn't that what AI is? Maybe on a more uh, simpler level, at least for now. That's the fear, though, because AI can calculate and do all this stuff so fast that it's going to gain consciousness and it could become our enemy. I don't know if that's the fate of humanity. That's the fate of humanity. That's the way I look at it. And the same thing with AI. It's coming whether you like it or not. So accept it and try to use it for good. Is there going to be some people that use it for evil? Of course, they probably already are using it for that. So just like every other tool, does that seem more dangerous now than you know? Same thing they said about cars when cars were first coming on the scene. Well, that's dangerous. We can't have those things driving around. They scare the horses, and you know, what if it blows up and catches fire? It's part of our culture, folks, to look at everything from the perspective of what could go wrong. That needs to change, in my opinion. We need to try and take the perspective of what could go right. And I think that's the same with AI. So, from the metaphysical perspective, so Elon Musk even says that this is a problem with AI, that because it only is as good as the data that's available to it. And isn't that kind of the same with us? We're only as knowledgeable as the data that's available to us. I do believe, from a metaphysical standpoint, though, that we can receive a higher knowledge or knowing, if you will. And I don't know that if AI can do that or not, or if it ever will be able to. So, but it is an enhancement and it's an extension of us. It's an extension of humanity. We're its creators. Okay. Not necessarily me or you personally, but humanity is the creator of AI. So can the creation surpass the creator? I don't know. Most people who have any kind of a belief in God or a higher power or source would probably say no, because it all comes from the creator. And at this point in the AI game, I would have to say the same thing, you know. Can AI calculate and bring back data and present data faster than us? Yeah, okay. So I guess it could surpass us on that respect, but it doesn't think and reason exactly the same way. It's just analyzing data. Now, one thing I've noticed between Grok and ChatGPT is that Grok is more willing to try and be balanced, especially if it brings back some incorrect information and you correct Grok. Grok will say, "You're right to question this and blah, 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 and here's some more information." And Grok will dig deeper. Chat GPT doesn't always do that, depending on what the question's about, especially if it has political connotations. So why am I talking about this today, and what does this have to do with metaphysics and spirituality and all that kind of stuff? So it has to do with our perspective on life. So there's a lot of people out there that complain about everything. And we all do to some degree about things that we don't like, right? We complain about it. And it's usually about things that we can't change. So how do we handle that? The way to handle that is to accept the fact that it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And I'm not just talking about AI, but a lot of things. And so how can we make the best of it, and what good could come from it? So let's look at all the good that can come from AI. I used to be a law researcher, okay? And I would really have to dig. And I started this actually before, well, the internet was really a thing. It was out there, but I didn't have internet access at first. And when you did, it was very limited. And so now and so I would look at archives, I would go into law libraries and find stuff, and it was a lot of work to find stuff. Now I can pull almost all of it up, you know, with the click of a mouse or the stroke of a key. And so, and with AI, I can do it a lot faster, and I can even have AI write a brief on it for me. You know, some people are lazy and they would just post that or use that, but I go through it, you know, and make and put it into my own words and correct some things that are wrong. And that's the biggest risk that I can think of at the moment, at least with AI, is trusting it implicitly. Don't trust it. Verify. Verify that it's correct. And Elon says this all the time. Now, Elon, I believe, started ChatGPT or was part of the group that started it. And he didn't like the direction they were going because it was supposed to be free, and now it's a paid application. I mean, you can still get a free version of it, but you don't get all the features. And so once he took over X, he started Grok, you know, because he wants it to be free and fair. And so I think that's a great thing. But ChatGPT is biased, and you know it, and that comes from its programming. Whereas Grok can be biased because it's scrubbing propaganda that's biased from the net and bringing that back. But it's less likely to say this is a fact, and it's more likely to say, but here's the other side of that, you know. And if it doesn't, and you ask it and say, yeah, but didn't this happen or didn't that happen? It'll go and it'll dig deeper and go, yeah, it will. And I had a conversation with it about vaccines, and it brought back a whole bunch of propaganda, and it's something I've studied for years. And I said, yeah, but what about this guy and this book and this website and this study and that study? And by the time we got done, Grok said, actually thanked me for giving it a more balanced perspective on the whole thing. And I thought that was pretty cool. So, so the moral of the story is to always, something that you hear me say often, is to always look for the good in all things. And you've heard me say this before, but it's sometimes very tough to see the good when you're in the swamp up to your neck in alligators. Okay, that's a metaphor or that's an analogy for how tough it can be sometimes to see the good in things. And I'm not perfect at it either. I sometimes struggle with seeing the good in things, and I have it. And you know, I was raised in the same society that you were. That often is negative and looks at everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could go right. And so I have a tendency to sometimes fall back onto that. And so it also helps to have the perspective on things that you can't change, at least not right away, to accept them and try to be on the right side of it. And so that's why, you know, there's a ton of videos. Probably when you see this video, especially if you found it from a search, you'll see a whole bunch of videos on why we should fear and be afraid of AI and its existential danger. And even Elon Musk is on that, has been at least on that bandwagon of, that AI could be a threat. And he's a pretty smart guy, and so a lot of people listen to him on that. I happen to disagree with him there. Well, I don't disagree with him that it could be a threat. It could be, but I don't think we need to fear the way we do. And what difference will it make if we do? If it becomes the threat that these people think it's going to be, how does the fear help? I'm a believer in that our thoughts and our beliefs help create this reality to some degree or another. Whatever, some people think it does almost 100%. I'm kind of lean towards that direction, but I still tend to question everything. And I believe a positive outlook and a positive attitude and looking for the good and everything is important in moving forward for humanity. I'm reminded of a near-death experience that I read about or listened to on a video, I don't remember which, where the gal was talking about how when she was on the other side, having her NDE experience, her thoughts attached to other people, her negative thoughts. She saw them attached to other people and influenced them to have similar or the same thoughts. And then they would pass them on to other people and how it would ripple through humanity. And so I have a video out on how to heal relationships where I talk about how you think the highest thoughts you can of the person, despite whatever it is the rift was between you. And you don't even have to talk to them. And if you do that for a period of time, that can change the whole relationship. And it has for me on a few occasions. And so I know it works. And so that's why that gal's NDE resonated with me when she said that. I went, yeah, your thoughts are attaching to people. And so I have to catch myself, especially these days on social media with all of the controversy going on in politics, what I'm thinking about people. Oh wow, this person's really dumb, and they're thinking it about me if they're on the opposite end of the spectrum of what we're talking about. And so it's like a vicious cycle. We keep thinking all these negative thoughts about each other. And I get it. It's hard sometimes not to, especially when it seems so illogical. It's like, how could anybody, come up with this idea? And it's because there is no logic to it. It's emotional. It's an emotional attachment to whatever the belief system is, and no logic, no matter how, you know, perfect the logic is going to penetrate that wall. I've said at times when God Himself could come down and tell them, no, this is wrong, you're wrong here, and it's this, this, and this, and they'd say, no, it's not. And the irony is they probably think the same thing about me and how illogical I am. The difference, as I see it, is that I usually can provide facts and evidence for stuff, whereas they can't, and so that makes me superior, right? It doesn't matter. The facts and evidence are they're oblivious to it. In fact, most of the time they won't even look at it. And so that also speaks to trying to change people. My wife and I were kind of having a conversation along this lines this morning, which is what inspired me to talk about this, and how it's useless to try and change people. And there's a saying that I like. It's called, "You'll be a lot happier if you resign as being general manager of the universe." you know. And so we're always trying to control the situation, and even if we're not in control. And I catch myself doing that all the time. Like, if I'm in the passenger seat, somebody's going to looking for a parking space. Oh, why don't you park over here? That would be better because of this, this, and this. Like, just let them do what they're going to do and don't worry about it. It's tough after a lifetime of being that way and not thinking of anything of it. And now that I realize that affects me and everybody else. If I have negative thoughts about somebody, it not only affects them and attaches to them, it affects me and my energy. And so perhaps that's the main reason that we should not fear AI or any of the new innovations that are coming out that we're going to see. And things are beginning to really ramp up and move faster and faster, my friends. So we must keep a positive attitude, try to move forward no matter what, try to see the good in all things, try to think the highest of people and their highest, see them in their highest potential. And it'll go out and attach to them, and they'll reach out to you. You never have to even talk to them about it. I've had this happen on a couple of occasions where with family members, and they reached out to me, and I never had, and it's never come up again. The rift has never even come up again. And that's incredible to me. It's like magic. And so that applies to everything that we're doing and everything that we're doing, especially on social media. And it's easy to sit behind the screen, right? And say, oh, that person's retarded or something. But that has an effect on you, on them, and on humanity, and it ripples through humanity. This that brings me back to the saying that we're all one, right? The cliche. And maybe some people are sick of that. Sometimes I get sick of hearing that too, but it's true. And I've had an experience through meditation where I've seen the oneness of all things, and experienced, not seen, but experienced the oneness of all things. And so I know this stuff is true. And so it's the battle, I guess, between Christ and the devil. The Christ on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, right? Or the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. Sort of the carnal nature continuously tries to assert itself, and I continuously catch myself, and redirect my thoughts and redirect actually what I'm thinking at the time. And so that also speaks to finding the silence, going into the silence and finding your true self and your inner self and letting go of the ego. You can't kill the ego. There's a misconception, I believe, out there about you should need to kill the ego. I think you need to bring the ego is the carnal nature, and you need to bring it into subjection to the divine nature. The ego is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And that's what's going on with humanity. Most people let the ego run the show, whereas it needs to be the servant. The ego is the thing that tells you you need to put gas in the car, check the oil before you go on that trip, and stuff like that. But when we let it run the show, it's going to protect you from everything, including yourself. So, and that takes some time, and I don't have full control of the ego all the time either. So I admit that. Anyways, my friends, I thought that this was an important thing to talk about. And again, it's not just AI, it's a lot of things in this life and in politics. I'm struggling with that right now too. I used to be way involved in politics years ago, and I haven't been for a long time. And I kind of got sucked back in recently with the election and all these things going on. And that taught me some lessons that I hadn't let go of everything like I thought. The hate in your heart, I guess you could call it. Maybe not hate, but the negativity in your heart. Some of that has bubbled up. And so that's probably a good thing. It bubbled up because now I know I need to address it. And you need to surround yourself with positive, uplifting things as much as possible. At least balance it out. I'm not saying that you ignore negative things because there's a balance between the two. You can't, you know, positive thinking all the time doesn't change everything because the positive and the negative are two sides to the spectrum. I use you may have heard me use the battery analogy. You have a positive and a negative pole, okay? And if you disconnect either one of them, the battery is useless. And all the magic happens in between where the electrons flow. So you need both, okay? And that's also an analogy for the world of duality. Okay, we're here making choices, and the choices, flow from positive to negative usually, and so on. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes some sense. And how is this related to spirituality and metaphysics? Everything is spiritual. This physical universe is spiritual. It has a spirit. The earth has a spirit just like you do. It has a divine nature just like you do. And it's trying to rise into its divine nature too. And we can help along with that if we rise into ours as individuals, and then collectively, we and the earth can rise into our divine nature. And that's, of course, what the scriptures talk about, the 1,000 years of peace, or the paradisical glory of the earth, and so on. We're all one, my friends. So it's all spiritual. It's not separate. The carnal nature and the divine nature are not separate. They're one. They're two ends to the spectrum. Think about that for a while. Give me your comments on this. Do you think this is relevant at all? Or am I just rambling too much here? I want to know. I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to the channel. That helps with the algorithm. I seem to have a downturn in the algorithm lately, and I'm not sure why. And so I have to be careful about how I think about that too. If I'm like complaining about it, like, why did that happen? It's like, no, it's just one step in the direction that I want to go. I'd like to get to 100,000 subscribers, and we'll get some more interviewees on here to tell their stories and tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you'd like me to talk about. All right, my friends, have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.